In the PMBOK Guide, 6th edition, a new feature that you'll see is this idea of tailoring processes. Probably you've been doing this already in your career as a project manager, where you have a process that you need to do, but this is a low priority project. So you don't do it to the same depth as you would on a high profile project. So tailoring in project integration management is that same concept, same idea, that I only use, first off, the processes that I need, and then I make a determination as to what depth or how extensive I need to do that particular process. So we tailor each process, and you'll see this idea as we move through each of these knowledge areas throughout the PMBOK. When it comes to tailoring project integration management, we tailor the processes as needed. And then what about governance? Remember that we have our enterprise or our program governance. So what governance do we have to follow? There may already be some rules as to what depth we're required to do these processes in project integration management. So you may have some requirements, some enterprise and environmental factors, where you're required by your organization to do a process to a particular extent. If you're working with a PMO, whether it's a directive, controlling, possibly supportive, they may already have some rules as well as to what are the best practices for your organization. So as we talk about tailoring in this knowledge area and the remainder of the chapters in the PMBOK Guide, we'll have to keep coming back to this idea of what are you allowed to tailor in your organization. In project integration management, the types of processes that we would tailor would be, first off, what's the project life cycle? Often the project life cycle is going to be determined by your discipline. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Recall that the life cycle, the project life cycle, describes the phases in your type of projects that you're doing. So construction has unique phases. IT projects have their own phases, or manufacturing or healthcare or so on. So the project life cycle, though, might be tailored to fit the type of work that you're doing. The development life cycle, so you think about adaptive or predictive. So in adaptive we had iterative and incremental. So what's your choices there and why? Or using Scrum or XP, and there's some rules or guidelines that you use in those approaches. So the management approaches would be affected here as well. Knowledge management, if it's the same type of project you're doing over and over and over and over, your knowledge management efforts might be pretty shallow. But if it's a new type of project that's a first time, first use, for example, you might be taking a lot more notes and doing a lot more documentation. You might be taking a lot more notes or doing a lot more documentation because you have to support that solution. So your knowledge management might be tailored based on, well, what new knowledge is being gained. I'm not saying ignore lessons learned. I'm just saying there's different depths of lessons learned and documentation in your project. Change management may be tailored. So you might have a project that we're on a strict deadline, so there are no changes. This is our requirements, everyone's in agreement, and we're doing no changes. Or you might say, well, requirements are very loose, or we're in an adaptive environment, so we're going to take this approach to change management. What's the governance are you allowed to do? So you have project governance as well. So again, you might up front define what the rules are, what the governance is for that project, and are you tailoring those rules or that governance just for this project, or are you adapting in an existing set of rules and governance that you'll use in the project regardless? So it's the idea of tweaking existing governance or creating a new one. Lessons learned, so you might tailor to what extent you do lessons learned, part of our knowledge management. And then what about the benefits management here? So what's the tailoring there for the benefits? So sometimes the priority of the project or the benefits, the urgency to have benefits realization, that may cause you to change how you do the project work, like your project life cycle, because we want those benefits as soon as possible. All right, so that's some concepts behind tailoring project integration management. Keep moving forward.